All right. What's up, people? How are you all doing today? Now, it is day 3, and we welcome you all to yet another evening filled with super informative talks from experts in web. And this is going to be one of those days wherein there is going to be FUGU, PWA AMP, and TWA. I'm Arpan, an organizer with Google Developer Group New Delhi.
And I am Mayur, organizer with Google Developer Group, Surat. Over to you, Arpan.
Cool. Now, as I said, today is going to be about FUGU, PWA, AMP, and TWA, which is also called as Web in Play. And yes, there's a fun activity which you should surely attend because we are going to have a lot of fun in that. And so making the most of the time that is available, I'd like to call upon Dhananjay Kumar, who's the Associate Director of Technology at GoIBibo. And yes, from himself, you will be learning about how the gap between native and web is closing in. And over to you, Dhananjay.
Good evening, everyone. This is Dhananjay. Thanks, Arpan, for intro. So I hope all of you are doing good, waiting for this pandemic to get over. And maybe pretty soon, maybe you guys would be interested to plan your next awesome trip with us. So a little bit about myself. I'm Dhananjay. I work at GoIBibo with a mission of ensuring the best travel experience across all the platforms. So when I say across, this across has a very, a significant meaning, which we will get to know during the course of this talk, right? So let me just quickly talk about this particular project. So today I'm going to talk about FUGU, right? And how the FUGU is actually helping us to bridge the gap between a native app and mobile web. And this has been a kind of a continuous efforts for all of us. All of the web developer could, I think, relate to this kind of requirement. So, before I actually delve into the details of FUGU and why at GoIBibo we decided to embrace FUGU, as well as the different benefits which we have received out of it, let me, introduce you to the journey, what we did before we started working on FUGU. So this is something, during this journey, I'm going to share lots of my experiences, some data, some milestones, which we have kind of identified during this journey. But let me give you a disclaimer. So all of these details is something which is subject to e-commerce domain and particularly our first-hand experience. So please take it with a pinch of salt. Okay, so let's quickly jump into the journey. So guys, this is a year which I'm talking to you, all of you, 2007. And this was a marquee year. Any guess, what this year was about? Maybe you guys can just write quickly on the chat. So the whole web journey, right? The web journey had this 2007 as very, very specific time period. And this, I think, had changed lots of paradigm, the way we have been doing our web development. And I think a big credit goes to this year, because of which we are doing these kind of talks today. Okay, so let me just answer it. So 2007, this was the year when Apple launched iPhone, right? So when iPhone came, it isn't the case that before iPhone people were not using web. Web was very much in use. In fact, I think if my memory works well, the World Wide Web, right? It actually was available to all of us by the year of 1991, right? So it has been almost 30 years since World Wide Web is there, and people are using it for different use cases. But 2007, that changed the whole paradigm the people started using, and the kind of expectation which people had from online world, or maybe the internet in general. So if you see, right, if we just continue in this journey, what we notice that since the beginning of 1991, when the World Wide Web was made available, uh, people started making lots of use cases from this, utility. But most of it, for a very very large period of time, the internet was all around, and focused towards one particular device, which was desktop, and lots of serious businesses were happening over there. It was just that, when uh, lots of use cases were building up, and then came the domain of e-commerce, where the money was involved. Now everyone could have just straight away gone to a online world, do some of your selection, make a payment, and maybe enjoy the experience, right? Now the time when money is involved, people are very very cautious to first trust the kind of platform they are using, and hence desktop was doing all of it. And since desktop was the at the center of this whole paradigm of using internet for e-commerce, maybe the reach was also growing at the space of the way the desktop was growing, or it was available to the mass. It was 2007 when Apple launched iPhone, and suddenly people started accessing internet while they were on go. Right? It is no more required to be in a particular space, sit at a stationary position, and then use internet. You could have used internet from anywhere of your imagination. Okay, so the moment these kind of users started coming to internet, their expectation also grew. So they started expecting a lot, but the kind of device, the kind of form factor from which they were accessing this whole application might not be working well for the solution which we have given to them, because we as a web developer were caught completely off guard, because we were not ready for maybe something like this kind of revolution. So as a strategy, as a solution, right, for this whole paradigm, we decided, okay, what we know is desktop. We know how to develop very good for desktop. We know how to make a desktop application quite performant. Then why don't I, just reuse my desktop and maybe start, giving experience to the users who are accessing my application through mobile web. And that's what we did. So we adopted a responsive approach. And I think we were quite happy with it, because now at least no one could have said that, when they are trying to access this application is not accessible, because it was. I think only thing where we did not do a fairly good job, that, we were still designing for desktop. Most of our assets were actually designed to work well on work well on desktop, maybe on a very consistent bandwidth. But when we kind of just took this whole experience from desktop to mobile web in the responsive manner, the expectation, or maybe the reality the user were getting, it was not exactly that way, because now suddenly there was issue of patchy network. Suddenly there was issue of various different form factors. So if you talk about Android, I think you have all kind of screens, whatever you can think of. And this opened a Pandora box, because maybe we as a web developer decided, okay, I'm not going to say anything, because a working solution which used to work on desktop, I made it responsive, I pass it to mobile. Now it is all the serious users who really want to transact, they will transact. So why should I care about it? And I think that's the approach we took for very long. while doing this responsiveness, maybe the users, web developers had to care about a new set of user agents. They had to program to ensure that their designs, their application is kind of working well on these mobile form factors. All well, I think to certain extent, all the stakeholders also started believing this theory that maybe the responsiveness or maybe the responsive mode is a solution for all these kind of problem statement. And for a very long period of time, we stayed like that. And then came another year, 2016, right? So we already discussed 2007 was a year when a new unknown unfamiliar territory was introduced to the web world, and web developers had to react or respond to this kind of problem statement. We had, I think, first approach was a defensive approach. We tried to solve it, and we were kind of thinking that we had solved it. So it was an ostrich mode we went into. We kind of closed our eyes and we thought, okay, though there is a device through which user could definitely come, they will try to access our application, but not necessarily these are the users who really want to buy something, who are really a serious consumers. So we had this kind of, when I say we as a web developer had this kind of thought process. It is only with a year passing by, we realized that by November 2016, and this is the data for the whole world, what we realized, the number of mobile devices which were available were more than number of desktops which were available. So this is like the whole table was turned. Earlier, desktop was what was a major contributor for all the traffic, for all the transactions. Suddenly, there is an equally potent or equally major same number of share of different kind of form factor, which is mobile devices. They were also in the game. So a lot of users traffic started coming to all these web applications, but not from desktop, from mobile web. So November 2016 was again another big milestone in this whole online journey. To the tune of if I kind of take the examples of how this journey particularly stayed with GoIBibo. So 2012, this was a period we were pretty much very comfortable with desktop. Our almost at the 70% of our transaction, our traffic, they were at desktop. We were doing good. All was happy. I think, but this was maybe the forward looking of our leadership team, who decided that desktop is maybe not something where the future is going to be. The future is going to be mobile. So why don't we start a bit early, start making some solutions, take this problem upfront and solve for it, and solve for better. So this was the period when we started. Okay, we want to solve for mobile web. And then we kind of zeroed upon the major problem statement which any user who is accessing our application from mobile web faces. So it was not definitely that they are looking for a very high kind of best experience as such. First of all, the biggest or the first line of problem statement was that the website itself was not loading well, because as I mentioned in the beginning, mobile had always a maybe patchy network. So our problem statement was, how do we optimize it? How do we ensure that we are able to deliver our application with the least size of JavaScript? So we built our application where it had some 25 KB of JavaScript. We brought it to the users to use it. It was a functional application. We started getting some early traction on the mobile web, but it was never sufficient to to say that, okay, we solved the mobile web problem. Going ahead in this whole statement, what we realized pretty soon that the share of mobile was growing every coming year. By 2016, I think we started getting more than 85% of our transactions on mobile, and that was a serious share, right? And that's the time when we started seeing that within this mobile ecosystem, if I further dissect, what I realized that almost 35% plus traffic is actually coming from mobile web, and this is the traffic which was kind of a primarily organic traffic, which is kind of a free traffic. So this traffic used to come all the way to the doorstep of our application, but maybe our application was not doing justice to it. So hence the bounce off was pretty huge. There was serious question that, what should we do? Should we actually, solve for it? Or should we, maybe think of, let's direct this traffic to native apps? Because by that time, native apps started already doing pretty good. They were converting almost 3.5x of what mobile web was doing. So that was one of the paradigm. In fact, a few of the companies, they took this bold step. They said, I'm not going to entertain users on mobile web. Whosoever comes on mobile web, they should download our app and they should actually, be with it. Personally speaking, I think that was slightly ambitious call, because if you just think over it, right, all the users who is going to download your app, actually your app is going to, do a competition. So they have to earn a space on your mobile phone. Storage is limited, right? And you cannot download all native apps of the world. You have to download only few. So that means there is always a competition. I think I did just try to see what is the average storage Android application or Android phone has in India, and the number comes out close to maybe around 24 GB. So roughly either the phones are 16 GB internal storage or they are 32 GB internal storage. So from this 32 GB, lot of space goes to the operating system. If they are not stocked, this number even goes further. So that means the competing applications have they have to be really competent to win that space on your storage. So I think pretty soon people realize that we could go to the game of maybe ensuring that people download our app only to certain limit. And there was a race, everyone participated into that. But soon, the growth of this mobile app downloads also started kind of becoming, flattening up. And hence, again, the focus shifted towards mobile web. What should we do for these 30-35% of traffic which is reaching to mobile web? That was a time Google came with the concept of progressive web app, which seems to be solving the problem, whatever kind of mobile web had in general, like ensuring that your mobile web is fast in general. It could work in the offline mode. It could maybe give you almost same experience what a app could do. And we at GoIBO also pretty much latched upon on this opportunity. We were like one of the very first to do PWA, and we did started getting benefits of different feature sets which came along with it, like Chrome notifications, add to home screens, offline mode. It worked well. In particular, the Chrome notification worked pretty well because now we had some way to target even the unregistered or the guest users, the users who were earlier, they used to just come and they used to bounce off, and we had no idea about them. Now we had a tool to retarget them, to reach to them, and maybe persuade them to come back and maybe do a transaction with us. So all started looking a bit rosy because we had a better solution than what we had earlier. I think our conversion rate also got some uplift by doing PWA. It just happens, once you give a solution to user base, their ambition becomes much more higher. And same thing happened with mobile web. Now the mobile web was doing much better than what it used to do in its earlier version, but the expectation of our customer, of our industry leaders also grew, because now suddenly what happened at mobile web as well as app started looking exactly same. So when it was to the extent of that, it was so tough to distinguish which one is mobile web, which one is native app. And hence people started thinking that, since mobile web could come so close to app, why can't it also have all the native feature sets? In the sense, when you actually, try to do a transaction, SMS or SMS comes or OTP comes to your phone and your app actually auto reads it. Why can't I do same thing on mobile web? On your native app, you could actually go and maybe sync your phone book. You could actually use your phone book for different purposes. People's question was, why can't I do same thing on maybe mobile web? So these kind of questions started cropping up, and it became more and more serious, more and more people looking for it. And then came this, kind of, I would say, a consortium of different companies, which involved Google, Microsoft, Intel. They decided, okay, let's try to solve for it, and then started project called Project FUGU. So Project FUGU, what it does is it try to, give you a standardized web APIs, which should be able to, give you the similar kind of feature sets. Basically, people started saying whatever the app can do, MWeb should be able to do. And who is going to power it? It is going to be FUGU. Hence, FUGU came into the picture, and we also started working on it. So I'll talk about FUGU, and again, once I show you how quickly we did, on these different stages, how the mobile web of GoIBO hotels look like. So the first version which you see right towards your extreme left. So this was our first functional hotels and website, which was built only with 25 KB of JavaScript. Around 2016 something, we decided to go PWA, and the one which you see in the center, that is our PWA approach. Again, we made some more theming changes and some more feature sets, and we finally adopted the FUGU capabilities, and that's what you see in the rightmost version of hotels application. So when all this was happening, what we realized pretty soon that the traffic trend, as I talked about one of my previous slide, moved completely from a desktop measure to mobile measure, and to the extent of 85-90% of transactions started happening on mobile web. We also noticed one more thing, right? That none of these transactions were kind of a single session transaction. In fact, there has been lots of situations where the journey, or when I say journey, it is like an experience where user is starting his transaction and finally when he is completing his order. So this whole journey at so many times, kind of spread from mobile web to apps. So that means there was, so I think one of the Google data says that there is, at least in the 46% of cases, there has been always at least one transition between mobile web and apps. So that means that how important it is to have a seamless experience between mobile web and app, and that's what started happening. So this whole thing, changed the whole outlook, how we started looking into mobile web. So the company's approach became mobile first, right? From the desktop major, now companies started looking into mobile first. So pretty much this was very, very good, and this is something where we were reacting, and I think we were reacting in a positive manner towards what users were actually looking for. So they were looking for the best user experience, where they need not to worry about whether they have the sufficient storage to download an app. They should be still able to serve perfectly, and that's what we started doing when we adopted PWA and later on FUGU. I think so there is an analogy. So if you do not actually work on your mobile web, it seems to be in a stage where a kind of shopper is coming to your shop and you are asking them, don't come to me from this door, come from another door. So if you do not serve your mobile web, that's what actually you're doing, right? Soon people kind of accepted this problem statement and they started solving for it. Now the main, the topic of what we were discussing, what kind of app gaps we were talking about. So during all this course of time, we realized, native app has a plethora of features which not necessarily are available on mobile web. Few of them like, offline mode, maybe background sync, push notification, and the list goes on. So these were the feature sets which mobile web was, eagerly looking for to adapt to. So, so this is what, when I talk about, or when anyone says app gap, maybe this is what we are talking to. So, as I mentioned in the beginning, the Project FUGU was something which was an attempt to fill this gap. I think the interesting word FUGU is kind of a Japanese word for a, kind of a fish, and I think what it is seen at this particular dish is, if it is not cooked well, it is kind of considered to be dangerous. Almost on the similar lines, if you try to open up a lot of features on web, but if you are not maintaining the core tenets of mobile web like privacy, security, trust, So you might actually break big time. So you have to be really, really careful when we are working on Fugu. So one quick example how actually Fugu works. So this is the a schematic diagram how web share API is implemented. So if you see, the browser is actually giving you one consistent API, which is a share API. Behind the scene, Fugu is ensuring that it is kind of abstracting all the platform differences, whether you are, whether your browser, the one which you're using, it is on Android or iOS or Windows. So irrespective of what kind of device or operating system you are on, you are always, free to use one consistent API. That's what Fugu is helping us to do. As a result, I think this is somewhat today's state that Fugu has kind of solved lots of use cases. Lots of these features are already available for, for usage. Few of these features are available under early access program. So depending on how curious you are to adopt it, you could actually go to Fugu website and maybe look for details. So here I have kind of shared the links. One is web.dev Fugu-status. So this talk about it, that different feature sets which were requested, how are they progressing, and how team is working on it, in what stages they are. There is an interesting another link which you could actually use on your mobile web to understand how much of these features are already available on your maybe on your browser. Something like called what web can do today. Now let me quickly show you a few of the examples what we actually did at uh, uh, at GoIBO. So this is I'm not sure if this video is working. Yeah. So this is one of the examples where we started using web share API for sharing PNR status, and what it actually opened up. There's a method called navigator.canshare, and you can use that. It will open up the system native share dialog. You could actually choose one of those your natively installed app to share the application. This worked wonders for us. This actually started giving us almost 10% of new users which we were started getting through this journey. There was another feature, and this is very, very interesting, web OTP API. What happened over here is, the web actually opened up navigator.credentials API, using which you could have actually, kind of intercept the SMSs which are coming from your own domain, look for those SMS, retrieve it, and maybe autofill your forms. And as a result, when we adopted for it, what we actually saw that we were able to reduce the number of wrong OTPs by 25%. We also use something called Contact Picker API. This actually primarily opens up the whole opportunity to start using your phone book via web. And again, we started. I think there were like 15% of use cases where people were eligible to use it, and part of it started using it, which ensured that the details which they were filling are kind of correct. So though we did all of this, right, and we kind of received mixed kind of successes, what we realized that over this period of time, on different stages, we invested a lot on PWA. Then we started investing in Fugu. We did lots of performance optimization. We worked heavy on the monitoring part. But it was never a case, where we could have said that, okay, now this is a stage where mobile web is sorted out. And I think when I see retrospectively, I think I'm able to say that mobile web is actually a journey. It is not a destination. I don't know, there will be a stage where I would be able to say that, whatever conversion rate you have on apps, maybe same is available on mobile web. And I don't know whether that's the right expectation. So think that way, that, we should keep solving for mobile web, because that is where the users are coming, or maybe, getting introduced to your brand for the first time. So we have to give them, a kind of awesome experience. So that should be our motto, and we should continue on this journey. That's what I'm doing. And here is a team, at GoIBO, who is actually behind this complete GoIBO, PWA, and the Fugu projects, and they are helping us to solve all these use cases. So I think that's most of it, and I will be here for I think AMA session. If you guys have any specific question, just shoot over the chat, and we'll be able to we'll try to take a few of those questions and try to solve. So thank you. Thanks for attending this session.
Thanks, Dhananjay, for the amazing session on a Fugu. Next up, we have Arpan and Brijraj. Arpan is a creator of a Commodal and organizer of GDG Net New Delhi. And Brijraj is a organizer at GDG Jalandhar and GD for a web and Firebase. And this will take a session on a PWA, why, how, and what. Over to you, Arpan.
Hey, hi everyone. What's up again? So today I am taking one of the sessions also. I am also the MC, the host alongside Mayur. So today we are going to talk about PWAs, Progressive Web Apps, the what, why, and hows of it. And obviously PWAs using modern web capabilities, whatever is web capable of today. Now, I'm Arpan, and alongside with me, you can see on the slide, Brijraj is also there. So we both prepared these slides, which are going to share the talk with you on. All right, so let's move on to the content that is going to be there. First, as the slides are titled, what, why, and how. And second, a part of how it is implemented in real life, the names of those technologies, how they work, and certain tools that you can use for PWS and certain patterns that you can use to promote your PWS. All right, so let's begin by going a little bit back into the time, just like Dhananjay went into it. So when initially web was introduced, it was more like websites. We use the term right now today also, but it's kind of a legacy term wherein it refers to web and site. So how do I mean to it to be legacy? It is basically your computer, or computer was there at that point of time. So your computer was connected to the internet. You clicked on something.html, and that file was served into your browser. Right? There was some styles which came upon later, and there was no like server side of things wherein you could get customized contents. Moving forward, when you started hosting dynamic websites which could host personalized contents. So there were like logical functions written. Even today, if you open any website, like you are browsing through YouTube right now, so you're getting personalized content on your probably the right hand side of your window wherein you see the suggested videos. So this is all catered to by a set of logical functions which are written on the server, and they establish your identity and get you personalized content. Okay, what happened after that? Well, you moved on to smaller devices with apps. Yes, there was mobile and you were browsing internet on it, but when came apps with as long back as we could go to those Samsung or Blackberries wherein they had customized apps, to today with Android and iOS, you have a lot of applications which you install and use, right? You go to the App Store or the Play Store, and then you download the app, it gets installed, you start using it. So these are all the things that we've seen now, till now, in terms of interacting with our digital devices. But let's move a little bit forward. The thought for me as a web developer is, can I just build websites or web applications with the skills of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript that I have? Can I not, utilize these skills to cater better to my mobile users who are accessing my websites or my web applications? Well, depends. If you know about PWAs, you can. If you do not, then you can learn and then you can. So there is not an answer no. And obviously you can cater to those people. So let's see what is a PWA. Till now, we've gone through the journey of the web. Progressive web apps. Now, these are web applications which basically cater to the user, the native app experience. Now, what is a native app? Native app is something that you install from that Play Store or App Store, and you click on that icon, or you touch on that icon, I should say, and it opens up into an app which runs in full screen. What if I told you your web application could run in a similar manner? And when it runs in a similar manner, it is called as a progressive web application. So that is what is a progressive web application. Interesting. I mean, if you didn't know about it, obviously, if you knew about it, this is something that is already probably you've used it, and we are going to come about it how it works. Moving on, what of progressive web apps entails? Okay, my app can access my camera, my app can access Bluetooth, and all of that. An app which is installed, the native app. For example, if you're using a social media website, it allows you to click pictures, it allows you to post, it allows you to probably record, or maybe record videos, record audio or video, right? Similarly, your progressive web apps are coming closer to native apps. So as mentioned earlier also, in the last talk by Dhananjay, there is a website called as whatwebcando.today, wherein you can see what all your browser is capable of. Yes. If you see, these are a brief set of things that I've shared with you in terms of audio and video captures, recording media, or accessing your file storage, or even running in offline mode, which is the most exciting thing for you as a developer, that your user is able to interact with your app even when there is no internet. So these are all the things, including Bluetooth, including NFC. So NFC is not there. There are certain things which are not there, including USB is there. And you can definitely send those push notifications which show up in your notifications drawer or at the top, right? So that sums up. You can basically get very close to these features that your native app has as compared to your progressive web app, or I would say right now your web application. We are yet to build a progressive web app, right? So we'll go by that. Now let's move to the next one. How is it possible? How do you basically create progressive web app? Now, ideally, when you open a website in Chrome, Google Chrome, or any other browser, you interact directly with the server. Okay, so your website sends requests to the server and gets responses and displays it to you. But there is a technology, a piece of technology called as service workers. This is a JavaScript file, or probably you could convert it into a set of files, wherein it acts as a proxy. Proxy means a middle layer between communication between your mobile and your server. So whatever requests are going from your mobile or mobile device to your server, and the responses which are coming in, this layer can access them all. So it can manipulate your requests, it can store all those things, or it can serve them in the background, or even notifications. And if I just move on to a little bit more description of this is how it works. Basically, your service worker stands between your network and your page. Okay, so browser, service worker, and network. In case network is not there, you can tell your service worker to cache certain URLs, certain requests. And during that point of time, when the network is not there, you can tell the service worker that whatever things were cached when the network was there, it can serve it. So for example, you are running a news application. So whenever a user comes to you, your progressive web app or your web application for now, what happens is that it will detect whether there is internet or not. If there is no internet, then service worker will get the last piece of news or set of news objects which were there served to the user or stored in the app, cached by it. And as soon as the network comes up, in the background, it will start interacting with the network, getting the latest items, and then it will serve to the user. If you've ever used Wikipedia on mobile, it gives you an option to download it, the article in the background. How does it do it? Well, for you to think. Okay, so moving on to the next one. Why should you be using a progressive web app? Well, one, ever seen that add to home screen button in probably if you've used Flipkart Lite or Facebook Lite or any other applications Lite version? Well, that particular thing adds to your home screen the icon of that app. Well, simple. It can be launched just like an application from your home screen. It will run in the full screen, and it is reliable, as in when there is no internet, you can code or write logic to your service worker, wherein it will serve whatever is cached, right? So it will not be showing your dinosaur. That is why I highlighted in red. You do not need to tell the user that I cannot serve anything on this web application because there is no internet. Well, you have a solution now. Next, it is fast. Why fast? Well, every time earlier when your user did not have a progressive web app, that is something added to their home screen, they would go to Chrome. They would either put a bookmark or maybe use a bookmark, or they would type in the address and then they would reach that web application or website of yours, right? Here, you can add it to the home screen. Second, since it can cache things, so it is very fast. So there is this stat that 50%, 53% of the users abandon a site if it loads in more than 3 seconds. Now, you do not want to let the user, go away from your website just because loading some parts of it was taking a lot of time. So why don't you cache some redundant things? And whenever the user comes up, it will basically show something that was already cached instead of showing the user a loading icon or a blank screen just because the network is slow. Okay, all right. What next? It is engaging. Why is it engaging? Why is a normal app engaging? Because when I click on, I'm saying click again and again. So when I tap on the icon, it opens up in full screen. It does not let me view any other thing. Whereas if I'm viewing a web application on a browser, there is a bar at the top wherein I add the address or probably other things, refresh buttons and everything. Whereas when you are using a progressive web app, it will run exactly like your normal native application in terms of viewing it. The user won't be able to easily tell the difference, and it will run in full screen. So your user will have an immersive experience, a completely immersive experience in your application. So don't worry on that, as in you will be having a good, giving your user a good experience. And obviously, as I mentioned, there are push notifications to make it feel more real. Okay, moving on. Well, the question arrives, well, I do have some developers for both Android and iOS, but why do I choose to use progressive web apps? So I should modify that question and say, when should you choose to develop a native web application versus when should you choose when to develop a progressive web app? Well, let's go through these steps, what a user has to go through when he or she is installing an application literally. You show them a link on the App Store, on your website about the App Store or the Play Store. Say the user clicks on the Play Store and goes to the Play Store. The app link opens. They click on install. It downloads, it installs, which could be an app, anything greater than 3 MBs or 2 MBs or whatever the size is. And then even if the user was already signed into your web application on the browser, they will need to sign in again because the app got installed, right? And it is occupying now a lot of space, some space at least, on the device also. Whereas if you do not want your user to go through all those steps, that is, if the user is already browsing through your experience, you just want them to click a button and it automatically gets added to their home screen and it just works normally like an app, then you should not want your user to install something else which is like taking 3 steps. Just like those 3 seconds, you might lose a user if you are not having all the features of your web application on your of your mobile application on your web application. So yeah, I mean, you want to ultimately reduce the size of the things user downloads. You want to reduce the number of steps that the user should take to reach to your application, whether it be native or whether it be progressive web app. Okay, I hope we are clear till here, because this is a very important thing. And before moving on to some tools and some things which are associated patterns, I would also like to not leave you right now, but give you a certain question, which is, what features in my app are useful without the internet? For example, if you are making an application which is used to just pay the bills, and you cannot do a lot of things without the internet on it, And the most it does is storing some certain bills on the device itself. And it's not a game, obviously. So would you like to create a separate app and tell the user just for your product that they would download that app and use it? Probably you can skip it and you can use PWAs, right? So list down the answers to this question, and once you have that answer, you will get to know about what's the need for your user to be. Okay, moving ahead. How to implement progressive web apps. Now, how to implement is basically when you know that you have to install service worker, what else is also needed? There are two things basically: manifest and service worker. So let's compare a manifest with a manifesto. So whenever elections are coming up, or you're a candidate, you have a manifesto, or you're a party, you have a manifesto. Now, what does that tell? Well, it is the face of your party, right? The way people would basically interpret the way you would be handling your duties as the government if you are elected. And service worker, I'll come to that again. So manifest for PWAs is basically something which tells I would say, the device on which it is, to how will your app appear to the user in terms of, say, the color of the whole layout, maybe, or the icon which you are going to use for the app for different screen sizes, because someone might install it on a different size screen, and someone might install it on a smaller or larger screen, or even a tablet which runs on Android. So you want to handle all of that. So you need to create a manifest file, and it's just a JSON file, nothing very complicated. Certain keys that you have to put in it too. And second comes the service worker, which is again a JavaScript. The moment the browser detects a service worker, it will automatically understand that this has a PWA, obviously, if it is working fine. And you'll be able to see it in the developer tools that whether the service worker has been detected and installed onto the browser. Yes, the browser automatically takes it onto itself when obviously you put in the right code into it. Now, manifest. What different things does it tell? Well, do you want your app to open in a standalone window, as in the full screen? What is the first page that the user should see when they open your app or the progressive web app, PWA? I would now refer to it as PWA. Okay. Next, what should the app look like on the home screen in terms of icons? Like, what should the icon be? Then there is a splash screen also. Splash screen is when you first launch an app, till it is getting the data from the network or loading the first screen, you show a loading icon or the logo of your company. So that is your splash screen. Yes, you can add it also. And you can also tell the browser to open the app in landscape or portrait mode. Yes, you can do that all by a simple JSON file. And what does it take to put in the manifest? Well, simple. You put it into the head of the file. That's it. Yes. And you can easily, just Google it right now, and you can make it after today. Okay. All right. Now, service workers. Well, I've already gone through it again and again and again. So I'll just say that this is something that is going to be able to intercept the request from your device to the server. So there is a service worker which is running on the browser. It is not running on the main thread of the browser. Main thread as in the one which is running the JavaScript, which is interacting with your DOM. That is the HTML elements. It is not running on that. It is running on the browser itself. So even when you might close that tab, it will still keep running in the background. So if you send in some push notifications, if the service worker is able to be connected to the network, it can store it and display it later on. If you've asked service worker to download something in the background, download as in not a very big object, obviously the browser has limited storage allocated, which it gives out to each tab. So it can download it in the background, and you can keep on browsing the other websites, right? So that is one of the things. And yes, cache and push notifications for beginners. These are the two most important things. And as you can see in the diagram, service worker lies between the network and the app that is there. Okay, cool. So what are the tools that I can use for a service worker? Well, First one is Workbox. Now, Workbox is a set of amazing libraries that make your job easy to operate with the service worker. Yes. So your progressive web app, when you want to write some code, if you're utilizing these libraries, your life becomes easier, because some people who have created this have already tested a ton of things, have already run through the benchmarks of whatever things are needed, and they have released it openly for you. So here's the link: google.com/web/tools/workbox, or you can just go to Google and type Workbox for PWA, and it will show up. Next up is Lighthouse. Well, one of my favorite tools. Earlier, Lighthouse was a separate tool which was probably added on to as a Chrome add-on, but now extension, I would say. Now it is integrated into your audits tab in the developer tools. What does Lighthouse do? Well, it analyzes your complete website for all the benchmarks that it should be showing up, in terms of the speed of the website on mobile devices, in terms of how it will behave in low network conditions, in terms of how fast is the website in terms of loading the first display, first rendering, second rendering, and what are the largest files that are there which you could reduce the size of. So everything. And search engine optimization. Yes, it will give you tips on what is there, what is not there. Even if your image tags do not have alt, it will show you. So it will tell you the security, performance, every benchmark. And today, it also gives you feedback in terms of telling you how to optimize, what things you should be changing, and best practices in terms of accessibility, right? So go ahead, explore it. It's there in your browser already. Next, maskable icons. Now, what is a maskable icon? On different operating systems, or I would say different devices, which run Android, icons might show up differently. Now, you do not want your square icon or maybe your icon without a background to appear with a white background if the operating system doesn't permit to. So you can use maskable icons from maskable.app, and it will automatically stretch or give that size to your icon for different devices. It can govern that. So very useful, because your icon is the first thing your user taps onto before reaching your application, and you need that. Next, yes, the best one, I would say, for me, PWA Builder. Now, quickly, as the line says, quickly and easily turn your website into an app. Yes, simple. Just go to the website, put in the URL of your website, and you'll find all the things that it says over there. And after all these tools that we have said, how to create a PWA, how do you get or onboard your user to, get into a PWA? Because users are usually used to, too many use over there. So users are usually used to install an app from the App Store or Play Store, or they do not. They just go to Chrome and do it. So probably you can just tell them how easy it is to install your application on the home screen. But how do you do that? What are the best patterns to be utilized? Well, if you see, Chrome automatically shows this install at the top right on the browser. And you can, if your app is a PWA, it will be visible. But how do you intentionally do it? Well, just put put a fixed header at the top. This should be your top right. So you can put it over there, and it will be showing up all the time. So the user gets reminded again and again cognitively that there is an app that can be installed. Or maybe if there is a menu which the user interacts with again and again, you can just keep reminding them that, this gets a lot more easier if you are utilizing the app. That is, if you install the application. On the other side, well, in a different way, on the landing page, you could just have a custom install prompt that could show up after the user has interacted with your application for a certain amount of time. Or you could just put up a custom banner, just like an advertisement shows up about your app, that you can install this. Now, finally, PWA time, as in how many people use PWAs? Since now we've gone through the whole journey of from websites to web applications to mobile applications to PWAs to what are the different tools that we can use and to create them, and obviously the patterns to tell the user to install them. Who all are using them? These are all the travel companies which are using them. Yes, they have adapted to it and have gotten immense increment in the amount of the engagement that they get on their web applications with their users. Then there are more. Forbes and CNET have adapted to it. People utilize their app to read a lot of news, right? Or articles. So they have even adapted to it. And more so, companies like Ola and have adapted to it, and they have seen an increment again in the interaction that the users are having. And obviously, this affects all the things, including retention of the user. The easier you make it for the user to, get to you, that always plays a huge role, crucial role, I should say. So this being done, I guess this is almost all the things that I would have wanted to talk to you about. There are tons more things, and we could also always do a code lab live to code our first PWA or maybe a complicated one. But today has been about this session, that is the what, how, and why of PWA. So here are some resources that I would leave you with before I'm back again. These things you can either Google, or you can just enter the link of web.dev/PWA and get the latest on what is happening on this. And this, I would say a huge thanks for staying along and listening to me. I hope this session has been useful to you. And whenever next time you are trying to develop an application, just take a step back and think again that question: what are the things that my user will be able to do without the internet on my app? So once you have the answers, you can go ahead either of the two ways. All right, cool. Thank you.
I really enjoyed the session. It's a pleasure to have you join the session today, the community. So it's our third day, and we talked about the performance developer tools, front end, AMP, Fugu, PWA. We learned a lot, and now let's have some fun. To bring some fun, I would like to invite co-host Arpan and Varsha with us from Woman Techmaker Jalandhar. Over to you, Varsha and Arpan.
So hello everyone, how are you? A very good evening to one and all from India, and greetings for the day who are joining us from other parts of the world. So before starting with the introduction and the session, we wanted to just share the schedule of this 15 minutes which we'll enjoy together. So yeah, we'll start with a quiz, and yeah, there is a twist with that, and then we'll move for a surprise, and then we'll end up having those tech talks which are waiting for us after these 15 minutes.
All right, guys. So, and I'm back again. I am Arpan, just to reintroduce.
And yeah, I'm Varsha as well, co-organizer from GDC Jalandhar and WTM ambassador for WTM Jalandhar. So yeah, it's a time for a quiz where we'll be showing you the pictures of few web-related logos, and you have to guess the same and answer them in the chat box. So let's interact and let's enjoy the session. But yeah, there is a twist in the game. You'll get a point one only if you'll just give wrong answers. Isn't it funny? What do you think, Arpan?
Well, I guess the best way is to start with an example. So here's the first example.
Yeah.
Varsha, what do you think Is this logo recognizable? Can you give the right answer, I would say, as per the quiz?
It's so easy, Arpan. It's Bootstrap, right?
Oops. Well, that was the right answer, but it did not get you a point. So what would be the right answer, I would say?
Oh, I messed up. So maybe we can just move on the second example, Arpan, and we can make guesses on this one.
It looks like Wi-Fi to me. Is it? Did I win a point?
Oh, you remembered the mistake which I did. Yeah, it's you earned the point, but telling the right answer to all who are not aware about this logo, so it's jQuery.
Cool.
So
Okay,
maybe
my turn.
we just proceed with theme now.
Now, those who know about TypeScript and have done some front-end development obviously know about what this logo stands for, but what does it not? So if you want to win a point, let's see what's something that you answer. And in alongside, I'll ask what also.
So people are answering.
Yes,
Yeah,
I guess
someone
some
is
people are
saying
saying Bluetooth,
Bootstrap.
MySQL, jQuery, spaceship.
You missed on this point as well. I think it's React. Uh, what do you say, Arpan?
Uh,
Like,
Okay, so you win a point, obviously. And all of those who answered Angular, although you are right, but you missed that point. So yes, the logo is Angular. It is one of the most popular front-end frameworks and one of my favorites personally. I'm working a lot on it. So next question from Varsha's side.
okay, so had a desire of having your application on the mobile screen as a native application. I think Arpan talked about it a bit, like for half an hour, and so yeah, it's like whenever you think of having an application as mobile web application, you think of progressive web apps, right? So just guess this logo and what it is. Arpan, any idea? Like any
Uh,
suggestion? Like
uh,
any answer
I can
you want to give?
remember there was this. Yes, it is probably Paniwala app, right? The one which is used by my water
Funny one,
supplier.
right?
Did I win a point? Did I win a point?
People are. It's JavaScript, yeah.
Okay, a lot of people are winning points. They know all about technology.
Great, great. Oh, so there are Avengers and Captain America lovers also.
Yes, and there's service workers. And Rahul says seriously. Praveen says pani wapas aaya. Okay, guys, let's restrict ourselves to technical answers only. Okay, cool. What's the right answer? Although you mentioned it, but still, if you could just go through it.
It's clearly visible. It's PWA. Like I know that like it will not let you to earn a point, but yeah, the correct answer is PWA.
Okay, all right, cool. Progressive web apps it is. My turn. All right, guys, if you've done a lot of front-end development or if you just read about it, you probably know what this logo doesn't stand for also. So let's have it. Which
Worked on this
other
actually.
front-end frameworks could be there?
I actually worked on this. It's Flutter for Web, right?
You get a point, but this is for, okay. Well, I'm waiting for answers on the chat. Oh, Devi Prasad
Siddhant,
has
you
an
lost the point.
interesting answer. Well,
Siddhant, you lost.
people are reacting actually. Siddhant has lost a point. Devi Prasad has won a point.
Oh,
Some of you are
someone
somewhere
alien.
there. Alien. Marshall Himanshu. Well,
I think Big Bang Theory lovers
oh
are
yes,
there.
that could be there. Okay, so the right
Let's
answer is
not remember. Forget.
oh yes, yes.
Yeah, good.
So yes, okay. So the right answer is React. Obviously, the one of the most famous front-end frameworks, the most loved ones, has a huge community support around it. Over to you, Vashta. Oh, is this your name?
Great. So a front-end developer with hands-on on Angular and React, like we just went through the Angular, React, and PWAs. Have you ever seen this V anywhere? What does this logo depicts? Maybe victory or Arpan, do you want to try?
I have it. The answer is this.
Yeah. Anyone, like, we are looking for the answers. Let's engage and let's not forget the rule.
Okay. If you want to win a point, we are trying to get the wrong answers. Anshuman, you lose a point.
It's
Chemical reaction. Okay. Riyal, you joined in late. You lose a point, I suppose. Siddhant, you lose a point twice. Okay.
let's
Sandeep
score more.
has put it cleverly.
Just answer.
One of the answers is velocity, vanilla, VMware, Wonder. What is that?
Someone has answered it smartly. VJS.
VJS. Yes.
Great. I'm loving the. Okay, so maybe like moving forward with the next slide. The correct answer is Vue, and many of you have got it right.
Okay. So when you're sailing in a ship, and it's my turn to ask the question. When you're sailing in a ship, your ship is looking for a dock, or for a dock, it's looking for a lighthouse. Similarly, when you are using an app, well, it's looking for something to tell it whether it's doing right or not. So this is one of those technologies, and we just now discussed it in the last session. What do you think it is? Not. Pani wala khamba is what Saurabh says. Interesting.
I can say maybe it's Diwali time. Rockets are everywhere.
I think it could be used for some fireworks. Lighthouse,
Rahul.
searchlight, light room. Well, one of you loses a point. House.
Yeah, it's Flutter.
Flutter. Interesting. A lot of people are bagging those points. Kitna maza aa raha hai? How much interested are they in writing the right answers, right? Bhoot Uncle. Oh, nice.
Arpan, I think it's correct answer.
Yes. So the correct answer is obviously lighthouse, which we just discussed. And one of the answers by Saurabh is Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. Now I wonder what you are, logo. Let's move on to the next question. Yes, Varsha.
Yeah. So, may please just to next slide, Arpan.
Yes, it's on the next slide. This is, I suppose, there.
Okay. So, how real-world Chrome users experience popular destinations on the web? Have you ever wondered? So, this is what which helps you in providing user experience metrics from the users across the globe. So, any guesses that what it is? And like,
if I make a guess,
Arpan, do you want to make any guesses?
Probably U stands for UI or UX, something like that.
Yeah, you got it right. You got the point, actually. Yeah, it's undo.
I got the point. And okay, people have poof. Okay, there is half Chrome. Interesting. There is undo. There is Power Rangers again. Ubuntu. There is Ultimate.
So
UI
moving
design.
forward with the next.
Okay, what's the right answer just by you, just to hear it officially?
So I think the correct answer is Google user experience.
Absolutely. Yes, just like your car needs an engine, this is basically an engine for one of the most popular web, I would say, technologies right now, most loved web technologies. So with the 8 in the logo, what does it not signify? Any guesses, Varsha?
I think it's Vue 8 something, Vue version 8 or something.
Interesting. You get the point. +1. We should have had a clapping background for everyone winning the point. Okay, someone says velocity 8. Okay. Saurabh is saying version 8 of Arpan sir. Saurabh.
Background noise.
That's all right. Oh, someone says Harley Davidson V8 engine. Are you talking about? Okay, the correct answer is V8 engine, which is basically used for running JavaScript on your system, because JavaScript was initially built to run only on your browser. So this gives you access to running Node.js on your system. Now, the final one, before we have that surprise.
Okay, so my question to you is, are you a React developer and ever bundle your modules? I think you have been seen this app which helps in taking care of these bundling the modules separately. So any guesses on this logo? Like as Arpan said, that React is one of the most popular framework which we use widely. So I hope that you have been through this app.
Come on, people. Box
Yeah,
inside box.
Vamsi, you got it right. It's
the ice
virtual.
cube inside ice cube.
Yeah, I think this name is good for like maybe the new framework Ice Cube, something
Yes,
like that.
ice cube sounds cool, classic.
I totally agree with you, Arpan. Okay, yeah, pack the hexagon,
There is
blue
light.
diamond, nice.
There is Illuminati. There is blue
So
diamond.
moving on.
Yeah, what's the right answer?
So Nikhil, you just maybe like moving forward with the last quiz or last option. The correct answer is Webpack. And Nikhil, you just answered it correctly, but you didn't. You missed out is scoring the point.
All right then, people. Now, well, I told you that was the last one, but this is the last one. So now we are trying to reduce the difference or the gap between the native applications and what web has. But what does this logo not stand for? Again, this is the final one, I promise. Varsha, any guesses? Is this tuna fish?
I think it's something fishy. There is something fishy in this fish.
Okay, let's see what people have to answer.
There was a session related to this fish, maybe like
What session?
in the starting of today's event.
Yes. Fat fish, unique fish. People are now voluntarily losing.
Satish, you lost the point.
Anshuman loses the point. Scary fish.
So, like, can we move forward with the answer? I can't hold the surprise actually.
So this is basically Fugu, obviously, and you can Google Fugu project. Now let's move on. Time for a surprise. So hold on, and you need to smile, but let's hear what Varsha has to tell us about the surprise. Varsha, over to you.
So it's just a very small thing. You just have to click a picture of your setup, and then you just have to go to twitter.com and just tweet your picture by tagging webdev and using hashtag webdev. You just need to click this setup. If you are seeing us or if you are viewing us using laptop, just click a picture. Or if you are seeing us via mobile phone, so click a selfie and upload, and we'll be showing that at the end of the session today. Also, please join us back in 1 minute. We'll be waiting for you. You can say the tweet link here in comment section so that we can retweet and we can just see the setups and we'll just enjoy this.
Yes, and group selfies, well, we are all missing them from the offline events that we used to have. So let's go for it. Tag us, tweet it that you're attending it, and share some love. Okay, it's time for Tech Talks again. So we'll be back in just 1 minute. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was nice talking to you.
So I hope you guys really enjoyed. So I hope everyone is refreshed already and having some snacks and alongside at this moment. It's time to next session. PWS and IMPX works great, and Prashant Mishra is a senior mobile solution engineer. Is going to take us through it. And guess what? He is a Googler. So Prashant, over to you.
All right. So, hello everyone. My name is Prashant Mishra. I am a technical consultant with Google. I work with the top companies and top sites in India on improving their web properties and on implementation of FUGU APIs and technologies like AMP, PWA, and TWAs. The title of my talk is AMP as PWA as TWA. Apologies for using a lot of acronyms. It's perfectly fine if you are not familiar with any of these. We will be sort of introducing to most of these terminologies. Basically, the idea of this talk is that we write code once using AMP, which is Accelerated Mobile Platform. Uh, and thereafter, we add the PWA in something called service worker. Again, we will be covering these in details in the following slides. And then we can eventually wrap up that code using a special activity called trusted web activity. And we can get a APK out of it, and this can be deployed in Google Play. So as opposed to traditional development, we are probably writing a much lesser code. So as I sort of just explained, this is how the today's agenda looks like. Uh, so basically, we will start with introduction of AMP and PWA. We will discuss AMP as PWA. Then we will look at some of the code snippets, like how can we take a AMP page and how can we get a PWA out of it? What are the potential benefits? We will be covering those aspects. And thereafter, I will be introducing, I will be giving an introduction of TWA and eventually wrapping the web code, which is the PWA code as TWA. So let's introduce AMP, Accelerated Mobile Pages. So basically, an average web page, right? Average regular web page that is probably not very fast. If we look at the data which HTTP archive is sharing, then as per that, an average page was weighing more than 700 KB in 2010, and it jumped to over 3 MB in 2017. And I think it is growing ever since. If we double click on these numbers, right? Let's take 3 MB, which was the size of the payload in 2017. So why it was as large as 3 MB? The main reason was that it was using a lot of scripts, which is JavaScript and CSS. and also it was using a lot of heavy images. So these three components were the primary reason why the regular web page was slow. And also, I mean, it has to do a lot with the way the pages are implemented. So even if say the JavaScripts are lightweight and images are lightweight, and say there are a lot of calls required for getting some critical content on the page. So the network latency will play a role here, and eventually the uh, uh, like the first meaningful paint and the largest contentful paint, these things will be happening a lot later. So how accelerated mobile pages are solving this problem is, first of all, AMP uses a lot lesser JavaScript and CSS. The JavaScript that we have in AMP are modular. So as you can see, this is v0.js, and then for every major component there will be a separate JS file. So it ensures that we are not bundling the page with a lot of unnecessary JavaScript, which is traditionally a problem with regular web pages. And also it uses out of the box a lot of optimizations and best practices. For example, the images and the ads which are not on the fold, they are not loaded. So they are loaded when the user is likely going to see it. So thus offering a very good perceived speed while putting a lot of optimizations in practice. A few features of AMP. So essentially, it does the smart content prioritization. It doesn't do any layouts. It does asynchronous loading. It flip pitches a lot of critical elements. Out of these, I mean, let me double click on relayout. So again, relayout is a problem with regular pages because like there are many popular websites where there are more than 5,000 DOM nodes in a page. And then when the page is loading, then during the course of rendering, uh, basically styles are applied and styles are changed at the root of the tree. So DOM is essentially like a tree, and also the CSS object model is like a tree. So essentially what is happening is that for a very big page having a lot of nodes, if changes are being made at the root level or at a higher level, then the children will be inheriting those properties, and that's why a lot of recalculation will be happening. And this is what will be affecting metrics like first input delay, and also it will impact the largest contentful paint. So this is not a problem with AMP, it is solved out of the box. Further, it is using responsive design. So the page is responsive, and also you can use responsive images. It support source set. So on a lower resolution screen, you can download images which are lighter. And also the user experience of AMP is good. No external JavaScript is allowed unless you are using components like AMP iframe and AMP script. These components comes with their own restrictions, and the restrictions are put in place in order to ensure that the pages are performing well. Also, there is a limitation on style sheet. It used to be 50 KB, now it is 75 KB. 75 KB is more than sufficient for most of the implementations, and this is the amount of style sheet we will be able to inline in an AMP page. So how it all works together. So how a AMP page is served. Let's talk about that. So basically on the origin, on your servers, you will be implementing page using AMP HTML, and basically the origin will be serving AMP HTML. AMP HTML will be cached by AMP caches. So AMP caches are nothing but content delivery networks. So they will be serving content from a location which is closer to the user's location. Hence, they will be minimizing the network latency, and the content will be delivered faster. And then there are many platforms like Google Search, which supports AMP. So these platforms pre-render the page in a privacy-preserving way. So the critical assets of the page will be downloaded even before the user clicks on that page, and the page will be rendered in a privacy-preserving way. And as soon as the user clicks on the page, the page will get rendered very soon. So the average duration which is required for the page load, the median duration is less than a second for AMP pages, and this is many times more for regular pages. In Google search, the AMP pages are shown with a lightning bolt symbol, as you can see on the right screenshot. As I just described, they will be pre-rendered and they will be rendering very soon. Also on the supported platform, you will find a lightning symbol denoting that the pages are AMP pages. So as I briefly talked, the median page load time of AMP pages from Google search is less than a second. It uses quite less amount of data as compared to its non-AMP counterparts. And AMP is widely adopted. So within 2 years of its launch, by October 2017, there were already 4 billion AMP pages published across 25 million domains, and I think the number is growing. Now the number would be much larger. So let's talk about something called linked AMP pages, and let's compare that approach with AMP as PWA. So linked AMP pages is the most common practice which publishers over the globe they are following for publishing the AMP pages. So what the publishers are doing in this approach is that there would be a page which would be a non-AMP page. So they are the traditional pages which are developed using standard CMS or their inbuilt platforms. And thereafter, another page which is an AMP equivalent of that non-AMP page would be generated. And both of these pages, the non-AMP page and the AMP page, will be linked using which is a canonical link. So what it signifies is that the AMP page would be serving the same information which is present in the non-AMP page. So that requires duplicate development because for every page there are 2 copies. One is non-AMP and one is AMP. And in platforms like Google Search will be trumping. Basically, AMP will be trumping the non-AMP page in Google Search due to this canonical link. So most of the traffic will be, at least the organic traffic will be going to the AMP page. How this compares with an approach like AMP as PWA? So we will be developing just a single copy of the page using AMP HTML, and then we will be adding the PWA features on the AMP pages itself. So there won't be a canonical link pointing back to any parent page. Just a single copy of the page will be generated. One caveat here is that the AMP features won't kick in when the users are on Google search. Basically, the features will just kick in when the pages are served from the origin. And I think that should be okay in most of the cases, because when the user lands on your page, you will probably anyways redirect the user to your domain, or they will be coming directly to your domain, and hence that is where the PWA functionalities will kick in, and add to home screen and like other features can be leveraged there. Now progressive web apps. Many of us may not be familiar with progressive web apps. So for the benefit of everyone, let me quickly go through some of the associated concepts. The flow on the top of the slide, that is the way a vanilla website, a regular website, which is not a PWA, that interacts with the web server for getting the assets and for getting the responses of the web service. So the calls are made directly to the web server, which is the origin, and the response comes and the page renders. With the progressive web app, we get something called service worker, which is a client-side proxy written in JavaScript. This is installed on the device, and this acts in between the browser and the caches and the web server, as it is shown in the diagram. And this is completely programmable. Depending on the business logic, the developers can program it. So one benefit here would be that think of a scenario when the network is flaky or the network is not available. In that case, the vanilla experience that will show a dinosaur because the server is not available, and hence the client cannot receive the response, and that is where Chrome will be showing a dinosaur. In the experience which is there on the progressive web app, the service worker will be intercepting such requests, and that is where we can program the logic that if network is not available, show a stale copy of the page, or show a banner page saying that the network is not available, try after some time, and then we can implement a logic in the banner page which will check for the connection availability. We can register the associated event listeners, and that is where as soon as the connection is available, we can probably refresh the page, and the user will be able to browse the site again. Also, there can be some endpoints which we would uh, want to serve online, like a service response which is very dynamic in nature. So that is not something which we would want to cache anyways. So we can again program the service worker to not intercept that URL routes and just go to the server for that URL routes. So another key feature of progressive web app is that it is re-engaging. So the user lands on the home page. User gets a home screen pop-up if the criteria is met. If the user accepts the pop-up, then the application will be installed on the device, just like any regular application that a user may have installed. When the user launches the application from the home screen icon, then a full screen activity will be launched. So here you can customize the splash screen. You can put a different icon, or you can put a different theme color in the background which matches with your original theme color. So this is customizable, and thereafter the user will be able to browse the site in a full screen view. Now, if we add various FUGU capabilities which have been discussed in the previous talks today, then probably we are bridging the gap between the native experience and the web experience, and just this lighter experience would be very powerful in most of the cases. This content we have, I think, covered briefly, but since we have installed the service worker, and since we are intercepting all the requests which are originating from the client, hence we can avoid showing the dinosaur, which is the screen on the left. And then, as I described, the service worker is completely programmable. So you can look at the experience on the right. When the network is not available, the user is still able to browse certain categories. They are able to select a certain product. They are able to go to the product description page. They cannot obviously check out the product because the network isn't available. But with service worker, we can write a logic like the one which is shown on the right, where we can catch the content of various pages and various user flows. Uh, PWAs are re-engaging with web push notifications. So these are system level notifications like the native applications, and they can be used even when the browser is not open or when your site is not in focus, because the service worker will be installed on the device and it can wake up for receiving the notification, and it can pass on the notification to the user. And again, this logic is completely customizable. You can group the notifications, and you can show multiple notifications. So basically, all this logic can be developer driven. So taking all these features together, we get something called progressive web apps, which is seamless and which works across variety of the network. So like in short, we have taken the regular web code and we have added additional capabilities, service workers, push notifications, and things like that. And this is what we call progressive web app. I want to quickly talk about a case study which Flipkart published with us in 2016. So they were one of the early adopters of PWA, and they saw 3x more time spent on the site, 40% higher re-engagement, and 70% greater conversion for the users who were coming via add to home screen. Now we have discussed about AMP and we have discussed about PWA. Let's talk in detail what AMP as PWA is. So basically, we take the AMP code, we add the service worker, and this service worker can be as small as just a single line of JavaScript code. And we get a progressive web app. So this app can respond, this app can work in flaky networks. Even if the network is offline, the content will be rendered and the dinosaur won't be shown. So now we can take a look at some code snippets, like how can we take a regular AMP page and how can we add this service worker to convert it into AMP as PWA. So this is how a simple vanilla AMP HTML looks like. You can check the second line. It is HTML AMP. So this AMP attribute there signifies that this is not vanilla HTML, rather it is AMP HTML. And then we will have to import this script, which is AMP install service worker. This script will enable a component called AMP install service worker, which we will be using for installing the service worker. Let's look into detail, like how can we implement this component and various flavors in which we can implement this component. So this is how one of the simplest implementations will look like. You will simply use this component AMP install service worker. You will point to a JavaScript on your domain where the logic of the service worker would be written. And as I described, it can be as small as just a single line of code. Let's double click at the logic of this service worker.js. So you can use the AMP service worker code. So this is a out of the box script which AMP project is providing, and a lot of logic which a lot of sites will be needing. That is already implemented inside this this file, this script, and we can simply use a single line of code, which is AMP service worker.init, and we are done. We have added the service worker in the code. It will be working offline, and now it's a PWA. So it is as simple as that. For those of you who noticed that it was not one line of code, rather it was 2 lines of code, in JavaScript, we can just bundle these 2 statements together using the ampersand operator, and now it is just a single line of code. And we are just done with a simple PWA, which is ready to go. Now we can customize this logic. We can use additional options like asset caching options. So here, for example, I'm putting a regex where I would want to go cache first for any URL pattern which is matching with PNG or JPEG, because these are images, and if they are cached, we do not want to make a network call. And that resonates with the data that HTTP archive shared. So most of the pages payload was images and JavaScript, but the major section was still images. Also, we can specify a custom offline page, something like the site is offline, please retry, or and any custom page can be specified using offline page options. And you can refer to this link here for further options, and like there are a lot of customizations which are possible using AMP service worker. Now, if we want, we can implement a completely custom service worker. We need not stick with the service worker which AMP project is providing. We can simply write something from scratch on our own. For that, we will have to use this attribute called data iframe source, and this will point to a HTML code. That is where we can write the logic of installing the service worker and handling various events. Let's check at one of the sample implementations of this service worker.html. So here we are checking if the service worker is supported in the browser. If you remember, we did not do such checks in the AMP service worker implementation, because these all were done for us out of the box. But if we are implementing it on our own, then we will have to do these checks. So if the service worker is supported, then we will register the service worker. We will simply point to the service worker script. And after that, the service worker will be registered. We will also check out the logic which is implemented inside this service worker.js. Also, we can implement additional event listeners like before install prompt. So there can be various use cases, because at times you may want to customize the point in time where the add to home screen is prompt is shown, because you may not want to show it as soon as the user lands on your website, because probably they're not familiar with your website and they will probably decline it anyways. So you can implement a logic where you can defer this prompt. So various event listeners can be implemented depending on the custom logic that you are implementing. Now let us talk about the core logic of the service worker, which we would be implementing, the custom logic that we would be implementing. So this is how our service worker.js looks like. In this demo, I have used Workbox for generating this service worker. So Workbox is a tool where you would be writing a Workbox build script. You will specify the rules that this URL pattern should be cached, and there are various inbuilt strategies which you can use in Workbox. It can be very easily integrated in your CI/CD pipeline. So for example, here I am specifying a pre-cache manifest. So this news.png is likely an image which will be used by the user, which will be seen by the user very soon after the page is rendered, and probably it's a good idea to cache it. Now, you may not want to pre-cache something which is immediately on that page, because there is a delay after the page loads, and after there is a delay between the service worker is installed and when the page loads. So typically we register the service worker on page load, and this is what that component will be doing. So, but if there is a subsequent route, any next page where the user is likely to go, so those sort of assets can be pre-cached. And you can see a revision number here. So when this news.png is updated, the revision number will be changed automatically if you have integrated Workbox in your CI pipeline. It supports various build tools like a lot of common build tools are supported, and again it's a CLI script which can be integrated in remaining build tools. I think Webpack supports it, and supported by 2-3 most common build tools. So now we can specify the rules, the caching rules for various URL parameters. If we can specify the cache, the custom cache name where we would want to cache these static resources and things like that. So this all logic is customizable and like depending on the exact business requirement, we can implement service worker here. Also, you need not stick with Workbox for implementing the service worker, but this is something which is recommended because that solves a lot of problem which you may face otherwise. You can also implement service worker from scratch using vanilla JavaScript, even that is possible, but that is a bit more complex. So now let us look at AMP as PWA in action. So the AMP site loads. There is a prompt, user accepts it. The icon is added to the home screen like any native application, and then the user can launch the application from the home screen, and they can simply view it in a full screen activity. What is AMP as PWA as TWA? We talked about AMP as PWA. Essentially, it's a web code, right? It is written in AMP with some added PWA capabilities. Now, what is trusted web activity? So trusted web activity is a special activity which is built using the protocol which is based on Chrome custom tabs. Basically, TWA can be used for wrapping your web code as an APK, and that will be launched in a full screen activity. And that will be able to leverage your the service worker. It will be able to prefetch resources. It will work offline. It will support native web push notifications. Also, the Fugu APIs will be supported. So basically, if we just sort of reiterate on the key points, right? We wrote code using AMP, bundled that as a PWA, bundled that as an APK using trusted web activity. Now it is on the Play Store, and the user can get a very fast and light user experience. So we have written just a single code which can be installed as a native application and as a web application, and hence probably we are reducing a lot of additional work which would have been required otherwise if we were writing different codes for all these different platforms. And basically I will be covering about trusted web activity in a lot more details in the coming session. I will be we will be going through the required tooling, and also there is a demo where we will generate TWA in less than 2 minutes. Thank you for joining me for this talk, and please stay tuned for the next talk, which is all about web in Google Play, where we will take a deeper dive at the TWA's implementation, and we will also see a success story about the trusted web activity. So thank you all. Thank you all for joining me.
All right. Thank you so much, Prashant, for the amazing talk. And yesterday, many folks also used AMP. And I hope this session will be helpful for leveling up your knowledge about AMP and PWA. Now, it's time to release PWA as an Android app. Next up, we have Prashant, as we already know him. And we have Ankit with us, who's working as an engineering manager at OYO. They both will be sharing knowledge about web in Play Store. Over to you both.
All right. So thank you for joining us for the talk called All About Web in Play. My name is Prashant. I'm a technical solution consultant with Google. And in this talk, I will be co-presenting with Ankit Jain, who is an engineering manager at Toyo. We will talk about Web in Play, which is about wrapping the websites using trusted web activities into an APK, which can be eventually deployed in application stores like Google Play. This is what the today's agenda looks like. We will talk about TWA. We will cover various use cases. We will talk about prerequisites, tools, and supportability. We will cover the concept of digital asset link in detail, followed by a demonstration. And then Ankit will be talking about OYO's Lite's journey, experience, and stats. OYO Lite is a trusted web activity. It's a lighter version of their native application. So let's talk about trusted web activity. So the next couple of slides, this slide and the next slide might be a bit repetitive for the folks who have joined us for the previous session. But for the benefit of everyone, let me quickly cover these two slides again. So basically, trusted web activity is nothing but it's a special Android activity which is based on a protocol which is based on Chrome custom tabs. It is used for launching a full screen browser tab without any browser UI, and we can use it to launch a web code into full screen. And we recommend that the web code should be having service workers and other native capabilities like offline user experience, web push, and the relevant Fugu APIs implemented, so that it can give a very native-like user experience. So this is what Web in Play is. We take the PWA code, we wrap it as an APK using trusted web activities. We deploy it in Play Store, and the user can simply download it like any other application, and the activity will run in a full screen, which will give a native look and feel and native user experience. Some of the use cases of TWA are like we can implement a TWA with full feature parity, meaning we can implement everything which has been implemented in our native application, assuming that we already have a native application. So the benefit of this approach would be we would be writing an experience which would be multi-folds lighter on an average than the native counterpart. So the APK will be much lesser. In most of the cases, it will be weighing lesser than 1 megabyte, and that can be released on stores like Google Play Store. Also, we can implement partial user flows. So there can be use cases where a developer may want to build certain screens which would be consuming the web code. So one example could be, say there is a product listing page or a product description page, right? And say just imagine that the content of the page and the layout of the page is changing very frequently. Say there are offers running, and overall the layout of the page is changing very frequently. So that is something which is very tricky to maintain in a native application because we won't be able to update the native application very frequently. Now this can be achieved using TWA. So just that section we will wrap using trusted web activity. And when the user comes to that screen, TWA will be launched inside your native application, and that can be used for rendering that dynamic section. Another use case could be to build checkout flows. So say you started with a website and then you are launching a native application. So you need not reinvent the wheel by writing another checkout flow. You can simply leverage what you have on web using trusted web activity. So these are the prerequisites and tools. You may want to use Android Studio for changing the code, modifying the code. Uh, you may want to use a tool called Bubble Wrap. It's a command line utility which can be used for generating the code and generating the APK and the asset link. You may want to use Android phone or emulator, obviously, for testing. TWAs are supported on Chrome version 72 or later. So you would you may want to use a appropriate Chrome version. And obviously, you would need a website which you would want to release as a trusted web activity. And lastly, you will be needing something called digital asset link between the TWA and the website. We will be covering these in detail in the following slides. So this is what digital asset link is. So it basically declares trust between the Android application and the website. It certifies that the website and the application is coming from the same developer. Because in trusted web activity, the cookies will be shared with the website, right? Because it is coming from the same domain. So the digital asset link is required to be established in order for that to happen. And the screenshot on the right that shows sample asset link. So what we do is that we take the certificate of the native application and then we do a SHA-256 digest of that certificate, and we get a fingerprint like this long alphanumeric string. And this is something we bundle as a JSON, like the one I'm showing here. We mention the package name of the application, and then we deploy it in a directory called .wellknown on the given domain. So let's say the domain is example.com. So it will be deployed on example.com/.wellknown. And then we will be opening a page from example.com as an entry point to the TWA. So this is required. Otherwise, the URL bar which appears in the Chrome custom tab, that would be coming on the TWA, and it won't be full screen. Now let us check out a demo of Bubble Wrap. So we will be using a website, a sample website, which we have already written, and then we will be wrapping it as a TWA. We will be generating a signed APK, which can be deployed into Google Play. And also we will be generating the asset link, which can be deployed on the website to establish the trust between the native application and the web application. So here I'm starting with the empty directory, and then I'm using a curl command simply to show the manifest of the website. Manifest has details like the application's name, the start URL. The start URL will be the entry point in the trusted web activity. And then it has details about theming, the icons and the background colors and things like that. Now, thereafter, we will be issuing a command called bubble wrap init, and we will be passing on the manifest of the PWA. In this demo, I'm using the default options, the default name, the default background color, default entry point. And since I do not have a signing key with me, Android key store with me, I'm generating it here for the demo purpose. If you have one, you can simply point to that Android key store. And the same key store will be used for signing the keys in the later steps. So now it has generated the source code of the trusted web activity with all the options, all the default options which we have selected. We can simply do a ls and see that the source code is now there in that directory. We will simply use a command called bubble wrap build. this will build that source code. Here I am using a command line option called skip PWA validation. So this will skip the running of Lighthouse. Otherwise, even Lighthouse will be running and it will compute the Lighthouse scores of the website. You are encouraged to not use this command line option. Here I am passing the key store password and the APK is generated, the asset link is generated. The APK can be deployed in the Play Store and the asset link can be published on the .well-known directory of the website. So with that, I will pass on the mic to Ankit Jain, who is an engineering manager at OYO, to talk about OYO's Lite journey, experience, and stats. Over to you, Ankit.
Thanks, Prashant, for very good introduction of TWA and setting up a baseline for this talk. Hi everyone, my name is Ankit Jain and I am going to talk about how we at OYO leverage TWA and build a super light version of native app which doesn't need a high maintenance. Let's see OYO Lite in action. It is available on Play Store and its size is 870 KB, which is just 7% of our native app, but its conversion is similar to our native app and 3 times higher than MWeb. Generally speaking, till now, light apps were used to be feature trimmed and higher latency alternative to native main apps, but that is not the case anymore. TWA apps have feature parity and have an edge over native apps, which I'll share in a couple of minutes. Let me briefly share what TWA is. Trusted Web Activities are a new way to integrate your web app content with your Android app using a protocol based on custom tabs. Although Android apps routinely include web content using a Chrome custom tab with URL bar or web view, but a TWA runs your app full screen in the default browser installed in your user's device and hence can leverage the features and performance optimizations of the browser. Since TWA opens up the app in browser, it shares the browser data like cookies and local storage inside app. So if your user is logged in inside a browser, then he will automatically be logged in inside TWA app as well. Let me briefly tell you the history of WebView and Chrome custom tabs and why TWA should be used instead of these. We can open a web app inside a web view as well, but here are the problems which we face. First one is web views are slow compared to custom tabs or browsers as they don't have latest performance optimizations which a browser offers. Browser shares the data like cookies with custom tabs, but not with web views. And we need to write good enough code to pass cookies to web view in your Android native code. There are APIs like web share by which you can share your favorite hotel to your friends on WhatsApp, Facebook, etc. This is provided by default by browsers like Chrome, but not in WebView implementation. Similarly, if your web app has a call button, then you want that by clicking that button, your phone calling app should be invoked, but that is not possible with web views. Last but not the least, the browser uses Google's safe browsing to protect the user and device from dangerous sites, which will lack in web views again. Let me talk about the problems with using Chrome custom tabs alone. All of the web views problems are handled by custom tabs, but it comes with a URL bar. Trusted web activity, which is built on custom tabs along with web asset linking, which Prashant has explained, solves all of these problems. So you might be guessing that TWA is solving everything. But let me stop you there, because since TWA are only supported by Chrome 72 or above, we need to put a fallback to WebView in case it is not supported. Trusted Web Utils library has a method which can be used to check if Chrome browser installed in your user's device support TWA or not. In case it is not supported, we can always fall back to WebView. Instead of showing a custom tab with a URL bar. Generally speaking, the native app has a better conversion rate, better repeat rate, and more loyal user base than the web app, but it has some drawbacks also. Let's first see the similarities. So the very basic similarity is, who likes to open browser, click on URL bar, type the exact URL of your website to experience what you are offering. If we can give a shortcut to bypass all these steps, surely that would be very good user experience. Since TWA app will be treated similar to any other app in the Android system, it will also have a launcher icon. We can achieve this launcher icon by adding to home screen our PWA app as well. So on the similar lines, TWA app will also be available at the tap of a button. We can also integrate Android shortcuts here to directly land users to frequently visited pages on your web app. As you can see in the GIF provided here, that users can directly go to their shortlisted hotels page. These were the functionalities available for native apps, but not for web apps. Now they are available with the help of TWA. Native apps make use of the caching heavily, and that's how they always have something to show even when you are offline. Example, you are browsing something and you enter into a lift. Then your network fluctuates and you are offline. With the help of service worker caching, the TWA app will work in offline mode also, and we can cache previous API call responses to give the enhanced offline experience. Nobody wants to play with dinosaur anymore. As you can see in the left screenshot, when user's network is offline, they will see the dinosaur, which gives the feeling of web. Although it should be handled in web as well, by service worker caching, users will see the page shown in right screenshot. It could be a static page or any other page depending upon your application logic, but definitely it will give user a feeling that I am not in the web application anymore. Native apps come with all the assets bundled in them. That is the primary reason why they only need to make an API call to render a page. Web apps also can cache its assets like JS, CSS, etc. in the browser for service worker cache, and from second visit onwards, TWA will need only API calls just like the native apps. In general, web apps TTI, time to interactive, should be around 5 seconds for a great loading experience. Any of your domain links can be opened in your TWA app by digital assets links pairing and an intent filter in your Android manifest file, which we'll talk about in a couple of minutes. As you can see in the GIF, if you share your favorite hotel to your friend on WhatsApp, then they can directly open that hotel inside your TWA app without going through the trouble of choosing between multiple apps. In the dialog box where Android system asks which app do you want to use to open this link, like browser, app A, app B. That is not the case anymore. If you have the digital assets links pairing, then your TWA app directly opens this page, as you can see here. Nobody will like an app which shows URL bar just like browser. TWA apps can also run full screen with the help of digital asset links verification. The app and the site it opens are expected to come from the same developer. As you can see, there is a URL bar on top in left screenshot, which is a norm for web, but not for apps. By digital asset linking, it can be removed and your web app will run in full screen mode as shown in the right screenshot. So we have talked about the similarities between the native app and the TWA apps. As I promised earlier, we will talk about why TWA apps have an edge over native apps. Here is why. So imagine a scenario where if a buggy code is shipped in a native app, then you can't do anything but wait for your users to update the app. This is not the case with TWA apps since they are just the web apps wrapped inside an app. So the code can be updated anytime just like the web. There is no need of waiting for adoption to resolve that bug completely. Another problem is backward compatibility. So backward compatibility is a huge problem in native apps. Once an app starts understanding an API in a certain format, we can't change that and hence need to support many versions of apps to keep it backward compatible. Excuse me, the backend will need to support many versions of API to keep it backward compatible. There are no version checks in APIs built for our TWA apps as they all will be running the same code similar to a web app. Since native apps ship with all the machinery needed to run, their size usually reaches a few MBs. TWA apps internally run a browser which is already installed in your user's device and request for a web page. So no code is shipped with the APK and hence whole app size gets reduced to few hundred KBs. Did I mention our TWA is only 870 KB? In conclusion, TWA app is giving us the best of both worlds, isn't it? Now, let me talk about how can you convert your web app to a TWA app. There are currently no qualification for content opened in the preview of trusted web activities. It means any web app can be used to build TWA app, but users won't like your app if it is showing URL bar inside an app. Or if your application is displaying not connected to internet message when offline. If it takes too much time to load or transition between pages are not smooth like a native app, then users will not feel or users will not have a feeling that it is a true app. So to make a decent TWA app, bare minimum qualifications should be the first, your app should work in offline mode as well to give your web app a feel of native app, as we have talked earlier. Next is, it should not have a URL bar. For that, you need to set up digital assets links. And obviously, it should be fast enough. In a nutshell, if your web app is already a progressive web app, in short PWA, with a good score on Lighthouse, then you just have to set up digital assets link and you are good to go. Yeah. Let's see how or what all it will take to build a very basic TWA out of your current web app. So this is the code of Android manifest file. So in order to generate a basic TWA app, we created an Android manifest file containing the default URL. In our case, that would be www.oirons.com and intent filters to define that this activity is the launcher activity, and another intent filter that says that this app can handle Oirons URL. So in the code, you can see that this is an activity code, and here we have defined the default URL as www.overrooms.com. This means whenever you launch your TWA app, it will go to your homepage. This part of the code is saying to the Android system that this is our launcher activity. This part of the code is handling all the deep links. So I in few slides back, I showed a WhatsApp URL is getting opened in PWA app directly. So this is the code by which it is happening. Here we have allowed the trusted web activity to handle intents to open overrooms.com. So after putting this code into the Android manifest file, we just need to put a launcher icon in a pretty standard way. After this, our app is ready to launch in the Play Store. There is a but here. If you only do this, then your app will work, no issues there. But there is another problem which we haven't talked about. There will be a long white screen between launching your app and getting anything on the screen. This is the time when the browser is getting initialized and your web app is getting the HTML document from your origin server. We can't avoid it completely, but can serve something which user is familiar with, that is a splash screen. A splash screen is the screen that generally every native app shows till it loads so that users can know that the app is starting up. So you might ask whether it is natively supported by TWA. The answer is yes. Starting on Chrome 75, trusted web activities have support for splash screens, and we just have to provide the background URL and an image. This will be sufficient, but it won't suffice for all users, as some of our users would be using browsers other than Chrome, and TWAs are only supported by Chrome. So splash screen support is out of the questions on browsers other than Chrome. All users won't be having the Chrome 7. The other problem which we have to handle is all users won't be having the Chrome 75 or newer versions. So we at OYO went with the splash screen provided by TWA and also wrote our own custom splash activity, which handled these use cases. First, we created another activity and made it launcher. This is the same Android manifest file which I showed earlier. Here, some extra code is written. So we have created another activity and made it launcher, which means this activity will be started on clicking the app icon. So here you can see, we have created a splash activity and we have put the name as the same. We have made this a launcher activity by this code. This is the same code which is used for deep linking. And this is the another activity which we were talking about earlier, the trusted launcher activity. Now this is not the launcher anymore. This is not handling the intent for web links. Now splash activity is handling those. We have to provide some metadata to trusted launcher activity though, because remember TWA supports splash screens by default. And in order to support that splash screen, we need to provide color, background image, and many things. So these are those data. This is the color. This is the image which we want to show on a splash. This is the splash screen fade out durations and other things. Now we have created a splash activity. But what should be put in that splash activity? So now the newly created splash activity should do the following tasks. First, it should check if the splash screen is supported or not. That is pretty obvious. This can be achieved by comparing the installed Chrome version in your user's user's device with the Chrome 75 version. There can be two outputs of it. If the splash screen is supported, then just launch the trusted launcher activity with the URL, and TWA will handle the splash screen. We have already provided the metadata in the Android manifest file. The second outcome would be, if splash screen is not supported, then show the custom splash screen layout for some time. Somewhere around 400 ms seems decent to us, and then launch the trusted launcher activity. In this way, users having old or newer Chrome versions will get the splash screen, although the handling of splash by TWA is much better than custom handling. As in the latter, we are putting a delay, a custom delay, a synthetic delay in launching the activity, whereas TWA shows the splash screen till the page is rendered behind the scenes and then fades out, which gives a very nice experience. Let me show you the splash screen again. Take a look at it. So there is no white screen. Here, TWA supported splash screen is used, and please note that it waits till we get the HTML document on the splash screen, so that users never see the white screen between launching your app and getting anything rendered. Let's talk numbers, which Oolite has given to us. First, the conversion rate. So Oolite's conversion is 3x of our PWA or MWeb. Users are really liking it, or users are treating it as a full-fledged app. The logged in percentage has also improved by 300% compared to our PWA. Realization is something that how many users have already, should I say, how many users have booked our hotel and how many have really went and stayed there. This realization has also improved by 50% compared to our PWA, which means realization is one thing which clearly shows that users coming to our TWA are more loyal than users who are coming to our MWeb or PWA, as users coming to our MWeb are more exploratory in nature. Oolite has Android shortcuts and app install tracking as well, and we don't see anything major missing compared to our native app in Oolite. So basically, what TWA has done is nothing but bridging the gap between web and Play Store. There are other features which are new to web. So let me talk about few of those features. The number one is SMS retriever. As you can see here, earlier SMS retriever was a capability which was given only to native apps. This is not the case anymore. As you can see in the GIF, now SMS can be auto-read and filled in your app. Here app means your web app, and can be auto-submitted. Users now don't need to go to the SMS app, memorize the OTP and fill it here. This has given us a very high logged in percentage. So if we start using SMS retriever, which is available for web apps, not necessarily TWA, then the bridge between native app and the TWA will be much thinner. Apart from SMS retriever, context access is also coming to web, which will really help in features like referral or share. There are other features like file access, Bluetooth, background fetch, flash sync are also coming to web, which will really help on the use cases which were till now not possible for web apps. and then all those features can be used for TWS. So as you can guess now, the gap between a native app and a web app is very thin now, and TWA apps do have an edge over native apps. That's it from my side. It was Ankit Jain. Thank you for listening. Stay safe, be kind to each other. Have a good weekend. Thanks.
Thanks a ton for informative session, and this time has come where we have all the expert and speakers at the same place, or should I say in the same browser. For everyone who has been holding up back questions, this is the time. Let's put it up. Next 30 minutes for you.
All right. So we have everyone joining in. First of all, thanks speakers for the time and preparing for this session, because all of us thoroughly gained a lot of knowledge from this. But this is the time wherein people have been waiting for a long time to ask their questions. So let's begin with the first one. This one goes to Dhananjay. How can one implement fallback for Fugu features for older versions of browsers?
Yeah. Okay. So I think it's a very interesting question, and it goes like without saying, whenever we are implementing a feature which is maybe not supported for a wide set of the browsers devices, it's always a good practice to have a fallback. So generally, what we do at our end, we go for a feature detection, right? So let's take example of I think web share, what I talked about in my deck, right? So say first for we look for the particular Fugu API, whether that API is available as a feature detection. Maybe Navigator is an interface. Via that interface, you can look for the method availability. If it is there, well and good, go for it. In case it is not there, maybe you can have a fallback mechanism. Fallback mechanisms can be as simple as maybe just gracefully degrading it, or maybe you can have an alternate approach. So in case of web share, what we did is we thought, okay, whenever maybe the native web share is not option is not available, why don't you go for maybe a kind of a copy to clipboard? So that's what we use as a fallback for Fugu features. Hope it clear the answer.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. I hope the answer was very clear to the person who asked it. Next. Okay. Oh, all right. This is from Ujjwal for me. What's the best way to write a service worker? Simple. Workbox. Just go and use it. You'll find your solution over there. It makes it quite fast. So yeah, I guess that would be a very short answer. Okay, moving on to the next one. Well, Saurabh has asked, Prashant, AMP as PWA is an interesting pattern. Any pitfalls or shortcomings for this pattern?
Yeah, this is definitely an interesting question. There are definitely shortcomings of this pattern, because the code that we are writing using AMP, and in AMP we cannot use any external JS other than using AMP iframe and AMP script. Now there can be use cases where you would want to use external JavaScript. So just imagine that say you have a travel website, and in the calendar you want to dynamically render the minimum fare for a given date, right? So at the moment AMP doesn't offer a component. I mean, there is a date picker, but that date picker cannot be used in in the flavor which I have just explained. So now that becomes a blocker. We may not be able to use this pattern in that case. Also, I mean, there can be other complex patterns, like say you are planning to use WebAssembly, right? Now you will have to see, can you run it inside AMP iframe? AMP iframe has got its own limitations. It cannot be on top of the fold, for example. What if you need that component on top of the fold where the user is landing? So again, you are hit by a roadblock. So that said, definitely there are limitations when it comes to corner cases like what I have just explained. But for most of the practical websites, like if you browse 10 random websites, probably they won't be using such capabilities. So for most of the websites out there, AMP as PWA should be doing fairly good. So hope that answers.
Great. Thank you. Thanks a ton. Before the next question, did I mention that, if you are attending all the sessions and if you've registered for it, you will be getting a certificate? Yes, absolutely. You heard it right. Okay, moving to the next question. Well, this one's for Ankit. Ankit, did Oyo also use bubble wrap to build TWA, since you adopted it pretty early and bubble wrap came in later?
So no, we didn't use bubble wrap. Bubble wrap is pretty new. We used the standard way, Android Studio, and to give you guys comfort, I am also a web developer, and I didn't have any experience in Android. So if you start now also in Android world, it will not be a very big blocker for you. So yeah, so Android, we started with Android Studio, and pretty much the same way how Android is written, we have used that. It is just we have to pass the data, or we just have to launch the tested launcher activity, and then it will take care of everything. It's just the Android shortcuts and a few other things which we have implemented, and yeah, but that's pretty much like an Android code. I think I hope that answers.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ankit. Next one, again for Dhananjay. What's the next Fugu feature you think your team would love to explore? Quite creative.
Yeah, I think so. So that's kind of a huge list, right? So, and I think when I was going through the list, whatever is there on offer right now via Fugu, a lot can be done. So I think my personal favorite is background sync, right? And I think that can be a very interesting paradigm to use. Apart from that, because we as a company kind of adopted the web OTP pretty early when it used to be called as SMS Retriever API. Since then, SMS Retriever got some initial feedback, and then Fugu team made some more changes to it, and now it is available as web OTP. So I think one thing we have to first maybe upgrade ourselves to move from SMS Retriever to web OTP. Followed with, I think, the background sync would be my next choice where I will be interested. Otherwise, I think this totally depends on your use cases. So I think it depends on subject to subject. So if my choice, I would go for background sync.
Great. So that's one feature. I hope the person who asked this got the answer. Let's move on to the next one. Oh, again to me. What's the best strategy for PWA? Cache first, network first, or stale while revalidate? Any scenarios? Well, thanks a ton for adding any scenarios at the end. The strategy depends on the use case, whatever you are trying to build. For example, if there is an app which utilizes, which has a feature for stocks, now you cannot wait and load from the cache the last stock prices. It has to be network first, so it has to get the latest data. So again, depending on your use case, whatever you're trying to build, you can definitely choose between whatever suits you the best. And obviously, in case you get confused, probably the proper user testing of that could be done. But specifically, I think you would have an answer from the product team itself. Okay, let's move on to the next one. To Prashant, are TWAs available for iOS as well? If no, any tentative dates? That's my question as well.
Yeah. So unfortunately, currently it's not available for iOS. We can just generate APKs, and that can be deployed in Android stores. As of now, there is no tentative date available. But if there is any development on these lines, then probably we can keep the community posted.
Great, thank you, thank you. Moving on to another question for Ankit. What are the top 2-3 challenges, Ankit, that you see with TWAs?
Yeah. So I have talked about a few challenges in the presentation also. So for the first challenge was WebView as a fallback, because when the TWA was launched, then the Chrome latest version was 73, I think, and it was supported after Chrome 72. So we had to put lots of fallbacks, and when we open the WebView, then we can't use few functionalities like web share. That is not supported in the web view. The call button is not supported there. So we had to put these kind of checks. Another challenge was this splash screen. So when OYO built the TWA app, then the splash screen support was also not there, because splash screen support was available after Chrome 75, and we started building it when Chrome 73 was there. So we need to put lots of handling to support a splash screen when it is provided and when it is not there. Other than that, so let me be frank on the last challenge, which is passing the data from the Android world to the web world. That is only possible via the query params. When we pass the URL to the trusted launcher activity, that is www.onos.com and question mark and some query params we can pass. But other than that, there is no other mechanism by which we can pass data from Android world to the web world. So these are the challenges.
Great. So I think that's a very clear answer. Okay, thank you, Ankit. Now, this is an open question to everyone who's there, and since I'm the host, so I'll just put it up. If there was one Fugu feature which you wish was built a bit better to help with more use cases, what would that have been? And any one of us can take it up, speakers.
So my favorite is SMS retriever. That is a feature by which Android people are proud of, and somehow it was lacking in web world, and this will give a very good benefits to web world.
Cool. Anyone else's favorite features? Anything?
Yeah, so I'll just take up the one shot on this.
Okay.
So of course, I think as Ankit has mentioned, web OTP is definitely a face saver, and I think it is built in a good manner. But one feature where maybe I would be interested to have some sort of improvisation, right, in general. So I see still though the contact picker example which I was talking about earlier. So now we have the first-hand experience where via web you are able to access your phone book. Though what is still there is a big difference between native app and web app is in case of native app you are actually able to maybe select all kind of thing, which primarily is not available in case of when you are using it via contact picker on web. So I wish there could have been some sort of mechanism where user should be able to select all, because practically it is not feasible as a user, right? If you want to, let's say, sync your phone book, for example, in case of GoIBibo, we have a referral program, or maybe the loyalty program, where it makes sense if you are syncing your phone book, you will be able to get more and more loyalty against that. So practically, it is not feasible for people to select contacts one by one and then kind of submit. So that's something which is on my kind of kind of proposal, and it's on wish list. If this is something which can be improved on configure, it would maybe start making much more sense for us.
Great, great. Thanks a lot. Okay, let's see what's next. How much time does it typically take to build a meaningful PWA? An open question for all of you, because I'm sure you would have gone through it.
Yeah. So okay.
Sorry, please go ahead.
Okay, sure, Prashant. So, I think again, it's a very relative question, I would say. I mean, it depends on your use cases, maybe also depends on the team and as well. So I can just, kind of share my kind of experience. So when we did PWA was also in the kind of stage where it was still going through more and more kind of improvisation. It was becoming better and better. So I would say PWA, let's think PWA as a thought process and not as in, that we have to follow a specific series of activities to become a PWA, but just try to grasp the gist behind PWA. What PWA is actually primarily trying to do that, first of all, your mobile web experience should be as good as possible, right? And there are multiple ways to achieve it. Again, depending on what kind of use cases you're solving. So possibilities, as I think Ankit was talking about, no one likes to see a loading screen. No one likes to see a white screen. So maybe you can have some sort of a splash, some sort of a, your fallback pages, so that even if the internet is not available, rather you would be able to serve some sort of static content to your user and not maybe that internet is not available. So think my proposal is think PWA as a thought process and then aim for it. Once you know what you want to achieve, you will be able to rather build it pretty quick. So that's my take. If I just give a kind of a number, at GoIBibo we took almost maybe almost a month to move from our mobile web to PWA.
Cool. Prashant, you were saying something. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, so I absolutely plus one to Dhananjay's comment. One good thing about PWA is that it can be built progressively. So we can start with a simpler experience and then we can add functionalities, APIs, and then we can end up as complex as the animation I had described. So to build a fairly simple PWA with simple capabilities like add to home screen and a banner offline page, assuming that the site is in a good state, meaning the performance is good, because PWA is not a silver bullet. If the site is not good, it won't bring any good to the any of the practical purposes. So building a simple experience could be very quick, and then probably we can refine it and we can build something on the lines of caching multiple layers of the pages, and we can improvise on it.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Prashant. Any thoughts on it are like really useful. And let's move further. I guess we are moving towards the end. So again, an open question. When I use the TWA, which is AMP as PWA, would my start URL be the AMP page itself? Won't it then lose the benefit of AMP cache?
Yeah, so the start URL will be the AMP page itself. And as it is being served from the origin, we will definitely lose the benefit of AMP cache. But there are two things. Firstly, the page can be served from a CDN. Basically a CDN which is proxying the original domain. So essentially it will be served from a place closer to the user's network, and hence it should be close to the performance that you would receive on an AMP cache. Definitely some benefits like the pre-rendering of the page that you get on the search result page, right? So that will be gone. But I think that is still okay because the user will be perceiving it as an app launch. And if it is being served from a CDN and if say a splash screen is implemented, then it should be rendered fairly quick. But yeah, in short, some of the benefits will be lost.
Cool. Any thoughts, Ankit, on this?
Yeah. There is a one problem which is there for I think everyone. Like we have to maintain the two versions of our pages. One is AMP, one is PWA. And generally PWAs become the feature-rich version of our pages, and AMP somehow lags. So AMP as a PWA may still be getting or giving us the good performance because it it uh, it restricts us of the use of JavaScript. So still, I think it will give us the performance benefits compared to our normal PWA, where there is no limit on the JavaScript and the CSS which we can use. So definitely, I would try this. And if it solves both of my purposes, then no need to maintain two versions of our pages.
Thank you, Prashant and Ankit. Okay. Again, an open question. Are your users able to understand if they are using your light TWA app, which runs on a browser engine? Like, are they able to differentiate?
I would take that. So we haven't got any comments on the performance of our TWA app. Definitely, we haven't got any negative feedback about the app, but the positive ones only. That I have got the feedback like that user said, we thought that this will be a feature trimmed version of your native app. Then this version of your app will lack features, the important features. But that is not the case, and there are few feedbacks were like, why would someone use the native app? And I mean, users are pretty happy about this app. And definitely, if they have the Chrome 75 and above, then there is no way to understand that this is the TWA app or the native app.
Cool. Great. Thank you, Ankit. And that wraps up all the questions in AMA session. And I can't even tell you how grateful I am for all of you to have taken out time, me and the whole team that has been working day and night to put this event together. And you absolutely are one of the core parts of the team. Thanks a ton for taking out all the time and interacting with the community. And for the attendees, we have an announcement coming up. So just wait. Till then, thank you to all the speakers. Thank you so much. Thank you, Prashant, Dhananjay, Ankit. Thank you to all of you.
Thanks,
We'll see you. Just a couple of more seconds, guys.
Okay.
Hi again, Mayur. What's up?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Joining, and there is one thing remaining.
Yes. So,
Okay.
thanks so much, everyone, for joining us today, day 3. And Mayur has some exciting announcement for you.
Okay, and that is the tomorrow. Tomorrow is the final day, should I say, exciting day. So, which is a field session on a privacy, security, micro interactions, and live design activity with all of you and more. Make sure you all the fill the feedback form, and there is a one a surprise, and those guys who fill a feedback form, they will get a participation certification from WebDev Live India. And stay tuned, you will receive the link from tomorrow's live session in the mail, and also you will get this feedback form link also in the mail. So over to you, Arpan.
All right, guys. That's it for the day. I suppose everyone was eating a lot of things in sessions, and keep some snacks stacked up for tomorrow, because it's going to be an activity-filled day with a lot of super cool, interesting sessions. And thank you so much for being with us. Stay tuned. We'll see you tomorrow. Thank you. Cheers. Bye.